Hello, this is Niev at the Rainbow Cauldron, and this is your weekly general reading for November 9th through the 15th, 2014. Um, I apologize for not getting last week's reading out. It was just a very busy time, what with it being Samhain and all that. And speaking of, I hope everyone had a lovely Samhain or Halloween. My family had an awesome time. My son, my middle daughter, and I dressed as Doctor Who characters. I was Novice Hane. My son was the Vashta Narada, and my daughter was a Dalek. And actually, here's a couple pictures of that. Anyway, the day after Halloween, my husband and I went on a date to celebrate our 11-year anniversary, which was actually in September, but this was the earliest we were able to celebrate. We had a super awesome day and got to see the Dalai Lama speak. It was awesome. Um, so you can see why it was a little difficult to get last week's reading out. So anyway, this week I'll be using the Crystal Visions Tarot along with the Celtic Tree Oracle. Okay, so let's get started. All right. So first we have Elder. Now, oh, and I forgot to say, this is the from the Celtic Tree Oracle, and will represent the general theme or feeling throughout the week. Something to think about. And then the three cards below will be from the Crystal Visions Tarot deck, and will represent the general flow of energy this week. All right. So first we have Elder. Now the book for this deck lists Elder as representing the end of October and the beginning of November, which is of course appropriate for this week. However, I use a different calendar where Elder represents about 3 weeks into November. And of course, the time represented by the card doesn't actually affect much unless we're specifically looking for time periods when we're doing readings. However, even though the calendar represented in the book is slightly off from the calendar that I use for the OM, they are still pretty close. So the seasonal feel for each card each card gives is still the same. Anyway, seeing as Elder is representing some time in November, Elder has to do with the wheel of life and death, birth, and rebirth. It's an end and also a beginning. And in Wiccan pagan mythology, we just experienced the death of the god during Samhain. Um, but we'll see his rebirth come Yule. Elder is highlighting the feelings and experiences after we experience this sort of ending, but also gives us hope for a new beginning, and that's what we see with Elder here. Elder is really talking about an ending to something that brings way for a beginning. All right, so the tarot cards we have the Two of Pentacles, the Wheel of Fortune, and the Knight of Wands. Okay. What I feel from this is, well, first, of course, a sense of juggling too many things, as we see here, trying to find a balance. And then I notice a link between the pentacles here and the wheel here. It's almost like the wheel is a close-up of the two pentacle coins, um, saying that your focus will shift to a more specific direction. The wheel represents a few things for me. One, it often represents something that is a natural progression, which is why it's also represented by the Wheel of the Year in more pagan themed tarot decks. It's showing that this is something that would have happened regardless of what anyone did. Um, and what the wheel also represents is chance, leaving something up to fate, spinning that wheel, not knowing where it will land. It's a surprise outcome that's out of your hands. And then what that leads to is then what that leads to is the Knight of Wands here taking passionate action, going for it. Now, court cards can represent other people in our lives, but it also represents personalities and attitudes in general from either yourself or from others. Knights are doers, and combined with the wands, the fiery suit of passion, spontaneity, and action, we have a person or an attitude of shutting up and doing it, going full force. So with this, we start out with too many things on our plates. We took a chance and began to focus on a more specific direction, allowing it to take its course and accepting whatever fate came from it. And then we are in contact with a person, or this may represent an attitude that we take um, once there's an outcome to a wheel, or the attitude we take toward the wheel here, of jumping in full force, going for it. The knight also doesn't know the outcome to his actions. He's spontaneous, adventurous, a risk taker. There's a risk to be taken focusing on this issue here in the wheel. Um, the risk being that we don't know what the outcome will be. Um, all right, so that's what we get this for this week's reading. I hope it was insightful for some of you and something that you can connect with. Thank you so much, and blessed be.